I welcome you to this session, and in this session we are going to look at assessment instruments and tools. So for clarity of this section, what we are calling an assessment instrument, other scholars call it an assessment method. So here we are asking ourselves, what way are you going to use to assess learning, to see whether learning has taken place or particular attributes or characteristics have been attained, or capability and abilities are there in the life of the person. We all know that you cannot look at the person seated or sleeping somewhere and see that this one can do tailoring, or this one can do can make a good presentation when he's invited on on an event. You can only use some methods, and those methods are also what we are calling instruments here, to be able to come up with information or data that can inform you about some of the attributes or characteristics that a learner has attained. So for this, we have an instrument we are calling observation as an instrument. If this person was there sleeping and you want to see whether the person can present, you wake up the person in observation and start a conversation with the person. As you take note of how the person is presenting, so that you identify exactly what you want to have, what you want to see in the person, so that you can conclude and know whether the person can do the presentation or not. So for that case, then it requires that you develop an observation checklist as your tool. So the observation checklist will have key areas which you are going to observe. For example, if it was presenting, you want to see whether the person can actually make a sensible presentation. You can look at posture as one of the attributes, which you are going to score that yes, he is standing up, but the posture may be on a scale of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A posture is getting 2, because in presentation, what happens? What are the postures in presentation? Standing akimbo. Upright. Then audibility, projection of the voice. Those are things which you are in your observation checklist. So as you're using the observation method or instrument, you are also having an observation checklist in your hands to guide you check those key attributes. So in a method, an instrument called presentation or presentations, you ask the student to present something. So what you want the student to present is what you put in the presentation guide. Yeah? So that the student comes and presents exactly what you had asked. And then see, so during the presentation, again you can do the observation, because most of these methods work together. You can use more than one, but you should know which methods you are using. Then practice work. If you want the person to produce, for example, a dress, is not coming to present it, but is at the work. That student must have created a workstation, like it's a workstation where the student can actually put into practice, and is using even equipment and the apparatus provided to do the work. Then still, during this practice work, for you to really have practice work, then you should have a guide for practice. In schools, you have a practical guide, something, or a question.
Food and nutrition. Home economics. They have got home economics lab. If they teach about baking, they are given the things they bake, and that cake is marked. Even the examiner tests. Home economics, if it's about knitting, if it's about laying beds, they do the practicals, and they are marked. They have that guide where they mark from. Yeah, I think it's a very practical example.
Thank you. So those are some of the examples. Then discussions. In discussions, remember that in all these, behind there are some questions. And we shall study about questions and types of questions. So, behind there are questions. But what are those questions prompting? What are they prompting? Are they prompting a discussion? Then they should be presented in form of a debate. So, in form of a motion, which sparks off a debate. So, here is you set a discussion guide which has what? The motion, and how the discussion is going to be guided. Is it one person presenting and others also come and present as you check to see whether the student is discussing with the gist of the subject matter, or is the student also discussing with the confidence? So in all these methods, behind there are questions, and behind each question there are objectives. What do you want exactly? What are those key attributes that you want to be portrayed using that method? For example, if you want students to see confidence of a student, and then you set an examination instead of setting a discussion or a presentation, then how can you really examine confidence by a student answering an examination? Are you going to keep moving around to see whether people are... You can't see confidence. And then, so this is the discussion. Then case study. What is a case study? You are better than me knowing the case study. Someone who knows the case study, can tell us. These days, case studies, you can have case studies in any subject.
Yes, case studies. Case studies is studying something to represent the rest you want to study. Yeah. For example, like in research, we are being told that you may want to carry out a research on problems facing primary teachers in a certain district. So you can get a case study of primary teachers in Wakasio district to represent all the what? The primary teachers in Uganda. Likewise, if by the way, biology, all of us did the senior biology, where we did the dichotomy. And you get one simple leaf, you study it, to represent all the simple leaves. That is a case study. If for me I'm teaching block mountains in geography, I can get Mount Rwenzori, look at the features at Mount Rwenzori, and I assume that all block mountains have those features. So Mountain Rwenzori becomes a case study.
That is. So the good girl, yes. You clap for the good girl. I happen to have came up with a situation which has been affecting the supermarkets in Kampala, and we were teaching business and its environment as a course unit, and then said what is happening to, for example, supermarkets in Kampala. And there was a time in 2015, where Uchumi wound business and was one of the biggest supermarkets in the city, and it closed. Then after it left Nakumati in the pool, Nakumati again also closed the business. Then later, Nakumati now left ShopRite. Then after, ShopRite also closed the business. And is the game still operating? So ShopRite left game, and then if you want to find where the game has closed. So, and then now Califa is operating. I drew a student to that case and asked what could Califa be doing that may draw it in a situation of Nakumat, ShopRite, and game. And what should Califa do to avoid going into the trend of the other supermarkets like ShopRite, Uchumi, and that's now the case. So the student has got to examine that. If we allowed the space, the approach to this case was to allow the student to go and interview out of there what should be done to get the responses, then that would be possible. But if it is done in an examination mode, but with case study, then you are not giving the student space to go and collect data. So that means you'll be assessing knowledge of or prior knowledge about what the supermarket would do. So in a case study, you come up with a situation. You create a situation, or you adopt an existing situation and get the student display ability to reason this case.
Now, can you also say that we can use a sample?
Yes.
Because now that one comes out better. Like you get a sample.
A representative.
If you are looking at loam soils, sandy soils, you can get a sample. And you are doing a case study of
as a representation.
So now the tool sample, the other method of sampling, that one is about data collection, but here is case study that tool sample. Is it correct? For example,
It is
for example,
because
if you're looking at features, like now, like biology, if you want to study simple leaves, you get a sample of simple, that specimen. Actually, we can say specimens, samples, depending on.
Now, this, which we are calling a tool here, they are not the reagents or the apparatus or the equipment that are going to be used during the assessment or during these assessment methods, but it is what actually you are preparing so that that assessment does what happens. You see, for example, you can have an examination which we are commonly aware, which requires a student to have a set, protractor, and a set square, and all other tools for answering that examination. So those ones are not the ones we are calling tools here. They are like support. Yes, they are resources that the student should use. But what we are talking about here is what the assessor should have. Yes. Must be having.
So in case study, assessor should have a case.
Yeah, should have a case or cases. And then interviews as the instrument. You see, what is happening in interviews is that in interviews, it is you set an interview guide which has a series of questions, which the interviewee, who is the learner, or in this case, or the respondent, has got to answer to. So this interview guide or those questions are always with the assessor. They are not given like it's printed out and you give to the interviewee. This is reserved to the assessor. Then you sound them for the interviewee. Then the interviewee responds. Then you go to the other question corresponding the interview you ask, and then the other one responds. The interview, most interviews, they have a face-to-face approach. You've got to interface with the learner and the student. If the student has not got the question clearly, you can rephrase it, but maintain the what? The what? Yes, of the question. That is interaction, so they are more interactive. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Now there is the modality. I see on NTV what Mao is in his home and he is being interpreted into the news. Being interviewed. Now that one is what? It's also part of that.
It's also an interview.
Face to face.
Yes.
Through internet.
Yes. That is still online, but
online face to face.
yes, but online but face to face. During interviews, you don't interview and then the person responds after 4 days. Yes.
Can I think about written interviews?
that one becomes a questionnaire.
Yes.
Because for me, I did field work. So interviewing is almost face to face. Questionnaire is written questions and written responses. That's how it differs.
Excuse me, what about recently these people who are being interviewed online?
Yes.
There was people who are the enumerators. They were being interviewed online.
That is also an interview.
That is interview. They were having questions, you just give the answer, you don't write. But now a questionnaire, you write your questions, you give, they write, you get back the questionnaire. Then you get the answers from the questionnaire yourself.
The exam has.
And the other one is for targeted something you want to learn. For example, you may want to carry out research. The problem facing adolescents, or at what age do they start bad manners? The adolescents. Then you design a questionnaire targeting that. And some of them may even have yes or no. Those questions of yes or no. Like now the ones we feel when we are getting passports, those ones are questionnaires. But an examination paper is different from a questionnaire. A questionnaire is targeted to get certain information from the respondent.
Okay, yes?
Now, how do we call this one that we give to children that we enroll them in that?
You call them interviews. But I want us to see the originality of the word interview. The word inter means between. Yes? Inter means between. So between means there should be more than one. Between, and then you view. There must be seeing.
This was other method. But that one I think they got it from you are maybe reviewing somebody's performance from where it's coming from.
What you
know what have different meanings depending on the context.
What you commonly do is testing.
I don't know how the term interview came.
What we call interview. If it is an interview, then the learner is the interviewee, not so. That means that you have what you want is with you. What you are going to interview, the guide, those questions are with you. Then you pose them to the what? To the learner. As the learner responds, you take note. Then after, you go and assess those responses. But where the learner is, you always give a question paper. And then the learner now answers. It is either testing or examining. Yes?
I want to get clarification. There are some places where you go for interviews, then they start with written. After getting some people from the written interviews, then they give you maybe like practicals. Then later at the third step, you end with face-to-face interviews. How can we term that, or where can we put that?
They have limited vocabulary of what they do. They are giving you a what? You are giving you a test.
Then they only wait for maybe for those we shall call you.
Then they also give you a practical work to do. Then they involve you in an interview. Yes. Possibly, if they do interviews later, they will be interviewing you based on the responses they have got during the test, yes, to prove whether you can actually do those by you defending them. So in an interview, the respondent or the learner should be able to defend the position, which is not possible during an examination. You give your answer and they take it. But here, the person gets it immediately. You can even say, add more explanation to concretize what you're actually saying. And if there is any extra question, you can even answer it during an interview. That's why most interview questions are open-ended. You don't close the learner off. You set an open-ended question so that the learner can exhaust the what? The explanation. Don't know whether we've been clear on that matter.
I think we are now graduated.
Graduated.
From calling them interviews to giving them academics.
Yes.
And that's why we are at the masters now.
Okay, thank you. And that's what.
There are some things which are generally accepted, but they are wrong. Not because it's an error.
They are generally accepted. So these interviews can be online or even direct, face to face, physical. But the questions here should be open-ended. If your questions are closed-ended, then why do you go for interviews? If people can read, give them the what? The questionnaire. And again, if they are closed-ended and they cannot still do what? Read. When you read for them, it does not qualify that to be an interview. Have you ever gone to school? You take note. That's not an interview. Yes. Have you ever gone to school? They give. In the interview, the person must explain. You see that? Yes, I've ever gone. That one, I can even answer it on a questionnaire. Have you ever been to school? Yes. At what level? Yes. That is on a questionnaire, that is capturable. But, are you a girl or a boy? Those are closed-ended. They don't qualify for an interview. But in the interview, you can create a situation and ask a learner if a lion came and found you on the what? On the way. What would you do? You see that? The learner will now find ways of what can be done. That is a qualifying question for an interview. You will do what? I stand in one place, grab it. I pull the tail. The boy says, I get it, squeeze, and it cries. So that is then what happens in an exam? What do we call an examination? An examination. Now, with examination,
I think the other examination has a set of questions with guiding rules and a stipulated period of time in which the completion is.
have you heard his response?
In my way of understanding an examination, it is a setting of questions or tasks to be answered with guiding rules and a stipulated period of time to be used. In most cases, an examination has a rubric. And I think those rubrics are the guidelines for you to use. If the paper says answer 3, you answer 3. You don't answer 4. You don't answer 2. If you answer 2, you have the loss. You answer 4, the other number 4, you have wasted your time. So it has rules and there's a period of time. You're going to do this task in 2 hours. There is no addition, there is no reduction.
But,
It is a clear statement.
so in examination, the assessor is already aware of the expected responses are already clearly known, and the time between which those responses have got to be given is already known. So, with examinations, mostly they are teacher-centered, or you can say they are dependent on the assessor. Or when the assessor gets responses which are not in line with the expected responses, then the learner is thought to be wrong during assessment after the responses are good, which limits the possibility that the learner could be having a reason for doing that thing that way, though it may not be in line with what the assessor has said or expected. I set a question which required a student to use matrices, which I thought the student would use matrices to solve. And when I said it was like buying two cups and 3 plates at a certain amount, and then you buy 5 cups and 8 plates at another amount, then ask the student what's the cost of a plate and the cost of a cup. And with that, I thought the student would use matrices to try to solve this. But the student found ways which I didn't know about, and calculated and until got the right cost of the plate and the cost of a cup. Then said, how can someone use other means and come up with? I actually wanted the student explained. Up to now, I am not very conversant with how he got to the answer, but he eventually solved it. So, but in examinations, you even specify the method. Use elimination method or matrix method or any other inverse method to solve, and so that you get the actual responses which you intend. So they are more biased by the research, by the examiner. But these days they are modifying examination setups that you can even go and find questions which are not so rigid. In what do we call questionnaires?
Set of written questions where written responses are supposed to be given by respondent.
Okay. Now, in examination, we use the word examination when it comes to institutions. And you are actually examining what courses have been, or the subject or the topics that have been taught already. But the questionnaires, as we use the word questionnaire, that those you may not even have taught those people or engaged them in any teaching and learning exercise, but they could be having responses which you need. So you set questionnaires with knowing what you expect, what responses you expect, but you don't know how those responses will be. Yet examination, you know the responses. So in the questionnaire, the responses you get, you cannot say they are wrong. You get it? When you set questionnaires and you're collecting data, the data you get, you cannot say it is wrong. If you get collected data from questionnaires and it is collecting data about gender, and someone says, I'm a male, you cannot say you are not male. You're not. When you receive those responses, you cannot say they are not male. That's what they have said. But in examination, when you set a question and say, are you a male? You examine and see whether that person is actually what? Whether that person is actually male, and say, no, you're not. You're female. Yes.
Also in quality assurance in schools or supervisors, we use questionnaires to get feedback from students about the teachers. Yeah, they are given questionnaires and they answer. For example, when the new curriculum was being introduced, after one term, the students were given questionnaires to evaluate teachers about the change from old to new. So we had seminars and so on. But some teachers had refused to change. They were going to class and teaching the old way. So now the students were given questionnaires to report about us, the teachers. Of course, they don't write their names or the teacher's name. There they can feel free. They can say 3A, geography. They just write the subject geography. And the student just answers. There are some questions which we have put, targeting to see whether the teacher is teaching, whether the new system is applying the old methods. Does the teacher give active job integration? How often? Does the teacher give you time to present? Does the teacher give research work? So they were targeting to see whether a teacher is applying the new secondary curriculum teaching methods. And they got those teachers.
So
of course.
So you.
For me, I was among the rest who had changed. If me I'm the supervisor, how can I refuse to?
So with the examination, with the questionnaires, you don't know what is actually taking place. you don't know what is in the rest, what responses you're going to get.
Yeah.
But with an exam, you know the responses that should be got. But with the questionnaires, you don't know the responses. So when you administer questionnaires, any response you get is not subjected to doubt. You've got to analyze you've got to analyze and see if this one has said that she was assessing to see whether teachers are using the competence-based curriculum in implementing it at classroom level or not. If he's saying that the teacher is not using it in senior 1, okay? And what of those, are there others who are saying is not using it in the same class? Then when you get those compilations, you also trace that teacher in another class to see whether the teacher is also not using that competence-based curriculum in that other class. Because you are not doubting, but you're not believing in questionnaires until you follow up the matter conclusively to draw conclusion. Otherwise, it could be a girl has said does not use competence-based. The boys are saying is using competence-based. Then you ask, why are girls saying? You can even classify them by gender to analyze the same and see whether it is a problem with some girls, not boys, or the teacher has issues with some of the girls, yes, of the students, before you draw conclusion. So questionnaires are more investigative. Investigators in investigation, they have this acronym. I think you've heard of it, ABC. Accept nothing. Believe nothing. And check everything. I think what you get, don't accept it. And then whatever, don't believe that there's but check everything. Yes, this is in questionnaire. So questionnaires can be these questionnaires. The tool questionnaire is good for qualitative quantitative assessment. You know, when you are in this subject area called assessment and evaluation, or measurement and evaluation, we are also researching, but only that we are using the word assessment, because we want to find out whether there is an occurrence or no occurrence, and to what extent is the occurrence happening. So when you want the questionnaire to be quantitative, to collect quantitative data, then it should have closed-ended questions or structured questions. Yes or no, or questions that fit on the what? On the Likert scale. What we are saying, a Likert scale, there is a Likert scale of of 4 and a Likert scale of 5. The Likert scale is that you hear as disagree. Disagree, agree, I don't know, I'm neutral, I'm not sure, undecided. Then, okay, this strongly disagree, disagree, not sure, then agree, strongly agree. That's the sequence. So, strongly disagree, you give 1. Strongly disagree, 2. Not sure or neutral, N, 3. Then agree, 4. Strongly agree, 5. That's a Likert scale. And this is used for collecting quantitative data, where you quantify the data. Then after, that is a questionnaire which is quantitative, that has quantitative premises in it. But when you want it to capture qualitative, the same questionnaire can have also qualitative. That's why you add the person to give the why the person has said it is strongly disagrees or strongly agrees. To capture, when you include these, the whys, then you are collecting qualitative, because qualitative data is collected in form of what? Words and explanations of perspectives, attitudes, and emotions. Then that means that this questionnaire, if it is capturing qualitative and quantitative, it should be having questions for quantitative, closed, ended for quantitative. For qualitative, quantity, you use closed, ended questions. For qualitative, you use open-ended, yes, ended questions. So that people can now explain and express. You see, when the teacher comes, he only speaks to us. We don't even raise up the hands. We don't even. Then you get to know. But if you ask them, the teacher allows discussions. Then you say, I strongly disagree. Or that means you're collecting quantitative data. You're not allowing them to explain to you. So these are questionnaires, and the questionnaires they are printed out and administered. The assessor does not need to get involved when the student is responding. Give the questionnaire, administer it, and go on your own business. Then come back after the agreed period of time to pick the questionnaire. So here there is, in the questionnaires, the assessor does not get directly involved. Then a test. What is a test? here we are looking at a data. A test is an assessment instrument which is designed to collect data about specific attributes. So test is by purpose. You get it? It's designed to collect data about attainment of specific attributes. If you want to assess reasoning, you set questions specifically for reasoning. If you want to test verbal expression or verbal competencies, you set a test, you set a tool called a test to specifically check that.
Can students add? Can they subtract? Test?
Yes.
Can they explain points?
Mm-hmm.
Can they be both oral and written?
Yes, it can be oral, can be written,
Like the exams.
even the exam.
Right now we have subjects like French, Chinese, German languages. Tests can also be done when they are preparing for all exams.
So if you set a test, you first say, what am I going to test? You see, a test for malaria does not test what? Does not test cough. We call it a test because it has been prepared for a particular purpose. And yes, that is the reason that calls for the table of specification. You got to specify what exactly you're going to test. Otherwise, you may test other things. You may end up testing several others. I heard people have developed a self-test for HIV. Has it been launched?
That
To
one
be-
can be very good. These men who jump like grasshoppers.
At night, you wake up at night and the person, Choo, what has
There are
happened?
some men who jump like grasshoppers.
Mm.
Keep on jumping. No, I'm saying that they keep on changing partners. So now that is very good because you just test their pattern yourself, not just say we shall go.
How? Okay.
They already there in big pharmacies.
Okay.
Not just
Yes, there is a question.
want something and they want to do something, and then you go for testing, you can do it.
I'm relating it to that. This question
Yes.
the categories of assessment.
Now the wait, you can first go for testing.
Yeah.
You administer test. You read the results.
Categories.
You eat your thing.
In this question, the assessor the assessor I think is looking at this. Is looking at this. So if you are using tests in in school, you've got to specify what is that you're looking for in learners. Yes.
For example, in economics, you can set a test to test whether students can define different terms in economics. Because I understand students so much definitions, yet they are common.
Yes. That's now your tool will have specifically definitions. Then work portfolio. This one we looked at it in under forms of assessment, but work portfolio is here as an assessment instrument or method that you collect information of the involvements and the participations of the student. What in work portfolio you're asking where has the student been? It's like collecting the CV, the curriculum. Yes, the different activities the student is getting involved in, and those that then you'll find those that the student is not getting involved in. An example? Sorry? You want an example for portfolio, worker portfolio? If in a school you have your students, you expect the student to be involved in debates, and you also expect the student, if the student goes back at home, it helps the mother in some of the activities at home. You're investigating all of those. Then how is the student participating in social activities with others? Does the student have friends? You're compiling what are the involvements of this student so that you can draw conclusion. Otherwise, you will not trust that student to be a class monitor.
Okay, there's something that has come into my head. Like in a school, you want to get children's areas of interest. You get a group of, you bring drums, bring balls, you bring the volleyball net, and tell children to select where they can fit. Can it be an example?
No,
They may not select anything, but these activities, each student is expected having participated. But you will find that deliberately some students, maybe because of lack of interest or just because of being stubborn, they may end up not appearing for debate. We can say there would be certain policies in school. Each learner should be part of a particular club or society. And then you find that this learner is not anywhere.
Or is there, is registered, but is not participatory.
It's not active. It's not active. And then, so you have to go on making that assessment. How active is this person in football? How about in debate? How about when it comes to football? Then how about socialization, gardening? Now, finally, I think you compile all his profile.
Profile.
In terms of the level of participation in different activities. So you come up with that.
Yes. So the data you collect, you can use this data to guide that student or to follow up and see that the student improves, because you've heard where education is, there is what you have, there is an agenda called democratizing education. I don't know whether you have heard it. I saw somewhere about education democracy. Is it in the question? What is this? Some. Read it. Explain democratic assessment in schools.
Can it work in our schools in Uganda?
Can it work in our schools in Uganda? So, there is democratizing education endeavors. Now it will depend on your view. For this case, which I'm going to share with you about education democracy, but later. So coursework. In coursework, what happens? The coursework. You see, there is a way we are abusing the word work and limiting it to writing. I have given the children homework. Then they go home and keep writing at home. So learners graduate from school thinking that work means a question and answer. But work means doing. Doing activities, which still activities in school, we say activity means still write and say. But here, for example, if it is coursework, it is, those are the can be hands-on or life-on activities that are assigned to a student during school activity that the student should do outside the school environment in order to relate what is studied in school with the practice in the what? In the community. So the intention of coursework is to create a relationship between the principals in the school and the practice in the community, so that the student is able to put into practice the principles in school while in the community throughout the course. Then at the end of the course, the coursework is presented. It can even be discussed. But still, within the course of that course, okay. Yes, that's why it is called the coursework. So, within the okay, within the course, the student can give feedback to the assessor on how far the coursework is. Then the assessor can even give guidance so that by the end of the course work done is good. And then homework. In some countries, homework means work to be done at home with your parents, and that work should be helping the home and the community.
Even modern schools, primary schools, these days give homework in form of questions like exams and also project work. Like my children in Kivekayunga school, they are given questions and then they are also given project work. Like P1, get fiber work, make a door. Project work. Then now, last time my P1 kid was given get things, get stones, get what, and make sets. An empty set, Smanya, instead of how many members. That is the project work. And it was part of homework.
That is.
So they were given questions, they gave us the examination papers. Then also project work.
Do they also present the project?
Hey, if they need to make a doll, you have to take it back.
You have to bring it back.
Then even this boy last time, he had to make sets from the masonry materials. You have to take back that. On the day of arriving, you have to present. They collect.
That is. So. So there are some universities which do coursework other than dissertation. It is called research by coursework. If you are, I think even here in Nkumba, they are using it in School of Commercial Art and Design. If you are to get a doctorate, you can choose to do research by coursework. If it is in sculpture, you can go and mold a sculpture which is not common according to your view, and then they come and assess it. When you've completed that for a semester, you again do another until the end of the course. They even assign you roles or what you should do. You go and do it and make it good. They come and assess it. After finishing that, they give you another like that, up to when you complete, without going to do research by dissertation. Project work, we call it project work because what a project is, you define a task to be done and then attach a time period on it. It is within that time period which that activity must be produced and accomplished. If the project work is going to span from the beginning of the course to the end, it becomes the project work becomes the course work. Yes, so? Because the period is equivalent to that over what? Over course. But sometimes we have shorter project work, shorter than the course. So you can have many projects within the course. Okay, within the term, you can have weekly projects. This week, you are going to do this. The student goes and comes back with it. So, thank you for this session. I would like to to close this session where we've looked at the various assessment instruments and the various tools and the methods of assessing learners. You can add on more, and those are the ones we are able to discuss in this session. Thank you.